welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It, the podcast where we say the quiet parts out loud. Real talk, straight to the point, no fake positivity. I'm your host, Danielle Young, and today I'm joined by Danik Bernier. Danik is an EMDR certified therapist and consultant in training, a trauma-informed parenting coach, and a mom of two. She specializes in supporting moms breaking the cycle of trauma in their family. And on today's episode, we are talking about impossible parental standards, social media influence on parenting, and why it matters today. Danik, welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It.
Thank you so much for having me. And Danielle, I love your intro.
Oh, thank you. I just like to cut straight to the point,
Yes.
like we're not sugarcoating anything here.
Love it.
So how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How have you been doing?
Good, good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you got started down this path of um, parental coaching and kind of what you're seeing nowadays with these impossible standards that we've all been subjected to as parents.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It all starts with when I became a mom. So when I became a mom, I was already a social worker, psychotherapist, kind of doing, generalized therapy. I was working in a children's hospital. I was working with parents, but, kind of general stressors here and there. And so what ended up happening was that when I had made plans to start a family, I was like, I'm going to be the best mom because, hello, I'm a therapist. So I
Yep.
know how to win at this game. And I was so far from the truth because what ended up happening is that, I had my first in 2019. And I feel like, pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID years were really, really intense when it comes to parenting accounts on social media. I mean, they're still intense now, but it seems like there was a really big boom at that time. And that was when I had my first child. And so I was a very vulnerable mom, just scrolling through, 3 a.m. awake. I just fed my baby and I'm literally just sitting at the bathroom and I'm just mindlessly scrolling before going back to bed. And what I kept seeing on my screen made me feel even worse than what I was already feeling. Just feeling like there's this impossible standard in parenting. Like what I was trying to implement in regards to whatever one social media account would say would go completely against what another social media account would say. And I was just like, oh my goodness, but I just want to be told what to do. Follow 1, 2, 3 steps and everything will be okay. And I will not mess up my kid as I feel like I have been messed up with.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, how do I go about this? And so I tried to navigate as best as I could. Then my second child came around. And then I was like, okay, if I am, bootstrapping this and I'm just going about with my gut instincts, I feel like it's just not enough because still I feel like I'm being screamed at from every account out there.
Mm.
And so I started looking at the nervous system. At that time, I was, freshly new out of the EMDR therapy training, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy, a type of therapy that has been popularized for its use in regards to trauma processing and healing.
Mhm.
Then I was like, well, there's something going on with my nervous system if when my toddler, who's 2 years old, has been going at it in a total meltdown for like more than 30 minutes, and I'm trying to gentle parent it, being
Mm.
like, okay, I hear you. Yes, you're so mad. yes, you're so mad, okay? And he's still grabbing stuff from the side table and from the floor and just throwing those at me while I'm holding his newborn baby sister.
Oh,
I didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, on one hand, I really want to have a good relationship with him. I want there to be attunement. I want there to be strong attachment. And on the other side, I can't let him just throw stuff at me.
yeah.
So what do I do here? And I just felt like I didn't get that answer from the most popular parenting accounts out there. I mean, I won't name names. You can just scroll and look, but I just felt like it fell short.
Yeah.
So then what I decided to do is take what I learned in EMDR therapy settings when it comes to um, preparing the nervous system and the body to go through a certain challenge that we know is going to happen. And in my case, it was the intense meltdowns coming particularly from my son. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use those on me. So, I was kind of my own guinea pig. Use those on me first. And I was like, this is working. Not necessarily because my child has stopped his tantrums magically or because he's listening more now. I just wave a magic wand and everything disappeared, but more so because I was able, with those self regulation tools, to tap into my logical thinking brain, my adult brain that knows that yelling might not be the most helpful thing if I want my son to stop yelling.
Yeah.
I was able to then tap into that. And I was like, okay, now that I've done, the guinea pig for myself, let's see how this plays out for clients. And then when working with therapy clients and coaching clients, I've seen that these EMDR inspired tools are really helpful when it comes to just meeting the unique nervous system needs. And I think that that's just something we don't talk about enough is that everybody's got unique nervous system needs. And unfortunately, big social media parenting accounts out there won't take that into consideration. It's just impossible with their business model. It's
Yeah.
just impossible.
Yeah.
And so that's the hill I will die on.
No, I agree with you. It's all about nervous system.
Yes.
It's all about nervous system. My coaching comes from that place too. If we're all dysregulated, how can we regulate another human being?
Yeah.
What kind of techniques did you use that were like EMD? I mean, were they all EMDR like tangential or were they like new? Or parents are going to be asking this, like, what did she use? Because I have a kid right now throwing a temper tantrum.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like, EMDR inspired coaching tools are this new and emerging field in the coaching world. And, sometimes therapists really just want to see their modality as therapy only. And then we don't realize that at some point in the therapy journey, we're not just doing therapy, we're actually putting on a coaching hat. And these tools can be taught for everybody. And so the tools that are the most, that will have the most impact are what we call resourcing and the future template technique. So resourcing means providing as much nervous system safety as possible before going through what we know is most likely about to happen, which in this case would be the tantrums, the meltdowns. We don't know exactly when to expect that, but if we look at our kid and the patterns we see, depending on the ages and stages, for many, for example, it's during a transition when we have to leave home to go to daycare, we have to leave home to go to school, we have to leave the park to go back home, right? Those transition periods can be really difficult. And so if we look at the patterns, we can give ourselves the emotional safety needed ahead of time so that we stay in our logical thinking brain as long as possible throughout the potential meltdown tantrum that's about to happen. And in a coaching session, what would happen is we would actually desensitize ourselves to what can happen. So, a future potential scenario. Because all these what ifs, all these worst case scenarios that can run on a loop in our mind are not all bad. It's data that our body's giving us. That's data that our brain is giving us in order for us to decide what would be most beneficial for us, for our family, for our child. And so it's worth looking into. Yeah, so what if you're at the park and your child throws their boots on you? No, not leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Maybe it never happened, or maybe knowing your child, that's a possibility because of the temperament. So
Yeah.
it's worth looking into and desensitizing ahead of time. And then during the desensitization, what we do in the future template technique, we kind of look at the future challenge as if we're watching a movie. So there's some visualization components there. And then we look at the sticky points. What are the points where we feel like, this is really activating for me, or oh my goodness, this is a real obstacle for me. I wouldn't know how to respond to that. And then we troubleshoot. Well, how would we want to respond to that if the goal is to respond calmly in a regulated way, almost in a, yeah, nothing to see here. Of course, he threw his boots at me. Of course. How would we respond to that? And then we go back until it feels like that movie is a boring one.
Mm.
When we're able to be bored when thinking about a future potential challenge, that's when the nervous system feels safe.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Oh, it makes total sense. I mean, because I'm a parent, I have two kids. They're older, but I remember those days of temper tantrums. And with my oldest, I remember being dysregulated. I had just come out of a very abusive relationship and with her father, and I was like, "Oh, okay, she's throwing a temper tantrum. I don't know what to do." You know, and I knew that I did not want to be like my mom. I wanted to parent different. I had that in my head, but it felt like that was all that I knew. And I think parents, they have that idea. They're like, "Oh, we're going to have this kid. We are going to parent so differently than we were parented. We're going to do no TV, no iPads, no iPhone, like no nothing, like no electronics. We're going to be so present." And then you have this child, and it's like, what did we just sign up for? So I think it's really helpful as a parent to keep an open mind and go into this thing like not being so stringent, because I was like, no, I'm not going to be like my mom. I'm not going to be like my mom. And I ended up just dysregulating me. My daughter fed off of that and she was dysregulated. And it was just like this perpetual cycle.
absolutely. Absolutely. And when we look at this, like, intergenerational trauma component where, let's say, in one family, the grandmother would have behaved in a certain way, and then what we see is the mom can behave in a similar way, and then the daughter's like, wait a second here. What am I doing? Do I have these similarities with both my mom, my grandmother, and all of that? And what happens is that, for the grandmother and the mother, yes, they might have similar behaviors, might get triggered in similar ways potentially, but what's underlying there can be completely different. If, let's say, the grandmother lived through intense poverty,
Mm,
and then whatever possessions she might have had, they would have been spick and span, like you could have eaten off the floor,
mhm,
poor but clean kind of mentality, right? And then what her child sees is the grandmother, constantly rubbing floors and just rubbing the whole house and making it super sparkly shiny. And then what she sees is, oh my goodness, this is the standard.
Mhm.
This is how we feel safe. So then we kind of subconsciously learn from that. And then the mom could be at risk of repeating those patterns, but for completely different reasons. Maybe the mom didn't grow up in as much poverty, let's say, as the grandmother. And then the daughter looking at both the mother and the grandmother being like, okay, what do I do here? I don't want to do this because I know that it robs me maybe of my joy. It makes me feel super anxious to have these impossible standards. In this example, it's for cleaning, but it can be for parenting as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
it could be for anything really.
that's it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was like that in my case. My grandmother cleaned all day long. She was the traditional wife, stayed home, raised the kids. My grandfather went to work, and then my mom worked full time. I was with my grandparents were like my surrogate parents. So they were my standard. And then I also had my mom, and that was also a standard. So when I became a parent, when my house wasn't clean because I was a single mom, I was working two jobs, I was trying to go back to college and finish my degree, I felt horrible. Like, why am I not able to do this? And I know so many parents out there feel this shame surrounding what they feel like they can and can't do. And then you add in the whole social media realm, and we're just all like, it, we're just like bombarded with this.
It's the
What do you,
perfect storm.
yeah. I mean, it's so unrealistic because we all look at social media and we don't realize that it's only there to show us the happy parts and the good parts and what people want you to see. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at the standards for parenting, not just from, those huge parenting accounts that I was referring to at the beginning of this episode, but also just friends, people surrounding us, our peers, we will only see a curated version. And it's that thing where, like, logically, now in 2025, we kind of know, but in our nervous systems, there will still be this disconnect between
Mm,
what we logically know and what our body holds. The body is still holding for signs of safety. And it could be the case that for you, for me, for the listeners, safety comes when there's no dishes in the sink.
mhm,
Now I can relax because now I feel safety. Because just the sight of the pile of dishes that are waiting for me in the sink is activating me so much. But I logically know that it's fine. I will tell my best friends, hey, forget about it. It's okay. Don't put that pressure on yourself. But when it comes to us, that's a different story. And that's because there's a disconnect between what we logically know and what our body holds. And again, the importance of nervous system work in that because it's not all just a logical thinking brain thing.
yeah. I know, I feel like a lot of my anxiety popped up after I became a mom.
Totally.
Things that I didn't even realize were causing anxiety were causing anxiety. Like you said, the dishes in the sink, because you look at it and you're like, there's one more thing I have to do. And the list just keeps on piling up. And, it's a mile long. And you're like, how am I going to be able to do this?
Yes.
So, nervous
Yes.
system regulation is, it's putting yourself in that space of it doesn't matter if the dishes get done right now. I'm good. I can be right
Exactly.
here.
Exactly. Yes. With those nervous system regulation tools, I mean, it's a possibility we can get there. There needs to be a little bit of some practice going into this because it's totally new, right?
Yeah.
We're used to kind of convincing ourselves that it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Well, how come is our body not following what we're thinking here? And you know what? As to the anxiety starting when we're entering into motherhood, I just think about who I was before my first child. I was
Hmm.
the chillest girl. I
Hmm.
was the chill girl. The
Yeah.
chill girl who then had major anxiety. I
Yeah.
was like, what is going on with me? I thought I could be just so chill. Yeah, you want to pass the baby around like a football? Yeah, no worries. Go ahead. Yeah, but that
Yeah.
was not the case.
No, no. We just have this perfect idea in our head of what motherhood's going to look like, and then we get the baby and it's like, whoa, no, this is not what I had expected. Where's my Instagram moment? Where's my highlight reel? Nobody wants to see the real truth behind what it takes. You're awake at 3 a.m., you're tripping over stuff because you're so tired, you can't function.
Yeah.
It's so important to just allow that healing, that moment to come in and not judge it. And I feel like so many moms, parents, we just get this outside judgment all the time from like family members, especially. Well, I wouldn't do that. I never did that with you. Why are you doing that? I got that too. And I think every parent does. And really that really throws you for a loop too, because on one hand you're trying to be this person, this new person, and then on the other hand you're trying to, you know, regulate yourself, and then on the other hand you're trying to be what everybody else wants, and it's an impossible feat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, when we're stuck in there, it's like we're in a dark cloud. I mean, there's a beginning to this dark cloud and there's an ending to this dark cloud. It can be temporary, but when we're in it, it can really feel like there's nothing else that exists, like we are a failure.
Mhm.
Because we can't possibly keep up with what we're seeing online, with how other people are thinking we should raise our kids. Everybody and their mother has a say in it, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
So it can really start feeling like the problem is with us and internalizing. Then
Mhm.
the thing is if you're an internalizer, if if you think about the challenges in your life and you are more so quick to think, well, there's something wrong with me. This thing happened because it's my fault, or I should have known better, or I should have done something. And you're internalizing, even if it's not yours to keep, then that's an indication that the risks are pretty high that in parenthood, that you will internalize when things don't go according to your plan or your standards or society's standards. So that's a really tricky um,
Right.
thing to go through.
Yeah. And it's so hard because we have so much overstimulation now as it is. We could be in a store and, with our little kids, and I remember this, my son, we went to a store one time and he was tired, and, kids get cranky. They're kids. And I remember he was just like throwing himself around in the cart, just like, I don't, and I got looks like he's just a kid. He's tired, but the judgment looks that you get from people who don't even know you, it's like,
Yes.
how so I guess for all the people out there thinking, how in a situation like that, how am I supposed to be regulated?
Yeah. So, you know what? There's so much work, so much of the emotional safety that we give ourselves has to do with the pregame, has to do with what we do before, and acknowledging that if this sort of situation happened, chances are it can happen again. I mean, I'm in Canada, you're in the States, we're in, the Western world, North America. This sort of thing happens when we go out to the store, right?
Yeah.
And so acknowledging that this challenge can happen. I don't know if it's going to happen necessarily because I don't have a crystal ball, but if I know that this is something that I really struggle with and for the rest of the day, I can be feeling really weird and overwhelmed with anxiety, then it's worth looking into even before going to the store. So what we would do is look at, okay, let's say you're going to the store this lady, this man, these people are looking at you with looks. Looking at you with looks, and you can
Judgy
just see it.
eyes.
Exactly, right? And we know the kinds of eyes, even though this is audio, we can just picture it,
Yep,
right?
we've all
And
been
so,
there.
exactly. And so, what we notice is that there will be some form of stress that gets kicked in, right? There's some sort of anxiety around that. We can feel the judgment. And if, for example, it's the judgment that we feel, then we can look at a past memory where there would have been judgment that we received, maybe not around parenting, but maybe around work, around studies, around the friend group, or whatnot, any other environment or scenario where we could have received judgment. And
Hmm,
then looking at, how did I respond to that? How come I didn't just crumble on the floor in that moment? What happened there for me? Well, if there's this scenario where maybe at work there was this one time you might have given a presentation and you received some judgment and you responded fairly well, just being like, yeah, whatever, then what we would want to do is almost copy and paste that feeling of whatever in your body when it comes to going through the grocery store and getting looks.
hmm, makes
And
sense.
so being able to copy and paste this internal sensation of, yeah, the judgment is coming and I have this attitude of whatever. That's how we cope. And then putting in these tools in order to strengthen that whatever feeling. And for others, it can be a feeling of, yeah, I'm just not even paying attention. I'm going through, and this is what I know my body will do. So desensitizing ourselves to the challenge, preparing our body to respond in a specific way that is realistic. It might not be realistic to respond to those scenarios with, yes, I feel so good and so confident in myself. I
Hmm,
just don't care. Maybe that's not super realistic depending on our personality styles, but something like, yeah, whatever. I just have to go grab the soup
yeah.
might be a little bit more realistic and enough to bring nervous system safety.
Hmm, yeah, makes sense. Other people are not there raising your kid. Let them judge.
Exactly.
Because everybody has their own opinion, and, the saying about opinions. I think collectively, if we all just stop wanting external validation that we're being good parents and start trusting ourselves more, like, "Hey, this is what I need to do for me, and I don't care what it looks like," then I think this would be a lot easier process.
Totally. And I think that many people are able to access this paradigm shift almost. But for those who are carrying trauma wounds that will get activated, it's this thing where it's really tricky to navigate because they logically know, yeah, I need to not care. This is what would be the best thing for me is if during the holiday dinner, and we're filming this, kind of in the holidays,
Yeah,
depending on when this will air. But if we think about gatherings, right, and eh, getting judgments or even the grocery store, yeah, I would some people can say, yeah, I would love to not care, but my body is not letting me not care because I have not received enough safety. So I am going to look for it in how I know. If the nervous system has been wired to get safety from mom, dad, when bringing in A plus 100% exam, and then you get a little tap on the shoulder, yeah, good job. And that's the only time you got seen and heard in your life, then heck yeah, as a parent, you will want to get that external validation. So that nervous system piece, goes for those who don't necessarily see themselves in the whole childhood trauma scenarios, but definitely for those with childhood trauma it is the gold standard nervous system work.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same if you're going into a place with, I mean, family is tough. The holidays are stressful for everybody. I don't care who you are. And if you're going into a family situation where those people were the ones who traumatized you,
Yeah.
it's a whole other ballgame. Because
Hmm.
not only do you have to be regulated with yourself and your child, but now you have to be regulated with every family member that has ever triggered you or that has ever been some form of trauma for you.
Absolutely. And in those scenarios, it's like we have to expect the conflict to happen if we're going to put boundaries and uphold them.
Yeah.
Some people are not going to be happy with you, whether it's through the silent treatment or almost like, these tantrums, but in adults.
Mhm.
Being in a 60, 70 plus year old body, but the emotional intelligence and development not matching the chronological age. And so that can be really tough in the nervous system because we are anticipating that. All right, I'm going to say no to my mom who wants to pass the baby around and meet Uncle Bob with the beer breath. Right? I'm going to say no, and I know she's not going to be happy with me. But that same she's not going to be happy with me will link back to childhood subconsciously, automatically, without us even doing anything. And so that's where we see the freeze, fight, flight, fawn modes
Yep.
activating, then parenting out of alignment with our true values because we just need to survive the moment. Oh my goodness, my mom is going to freak out. I need to let her do her thing. Well, the good thing is if we know we can expect that sort of thing because you've had history with these people, you can see patterns, you can prepare yourself to that challenge and make it feel boring in your nervous system when we tap into that true safety. But yeah, it's incredibly tough.
Yeah, family is a whole other monster.
Totally.
And then add in everything else going on. So, what would you say to a parent who is coming at this like, you know what? I am already fried. I just do not have the bandwidth to do this anymore. I've tried all these things. I'm mentally unhealthy because I've been watching social media. Like, I cannot handle anymore. I can't take anymore. I am burned out. How would
Mhm.
you, what advice do you give those parents, those
Mhm.
moms?
Yeah, that's it. I would look into a little bit of a social media detox to begin with, most likely. Because what I've seen not only in my therapy practice, but also with coaching clients is when working with parents, there will be this um, comparison going on. Even if it's super subconscious, even if we don't even realize we're doing it, just the fact that you are the parent to a child and you are consuming social media where it's only highlight reels, where parenting accounts will post tips and tricks and you've tried them and nothing works, chances are the first step can be just a little bit of that detox. And I'm not saying to cut it completely because let's face it, it's part of our everyday life. Some
Yeah.
people rely on that for their businesses, their livelihoods, and whatnot. So at least looking through the list of people, accounts you follow, and then deciding, okay, even just temporarily, I'm going to unfollow, or I think there's other things you can do to like unfollow, but you're not really unfollowing. You're just like putting on mute or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Depending on the account you've got, there's
yeah,
these
I'm not
things you can
sure.
do. And then, you know, just being okay with messing up. I'm already messing up. I'm going to mess up today, tomorrow, in the future, in the next 24 hours. I'm going to let myself mess up and try and tune in with my gut instinct. What my gut instinct is actually telling me about what my kid needs. And as humans, we are hardwired for connection, for healthy attachment. Humans in, caveman era didn't have all these tips, tricks, and hacks for parenting. All they
Yeah.
had was nervous system to nervous system, what felt like made sense in their lives. And so I don't mean to romanticize the past necessarily, but what I'm trying to say is that going back to the basics, you've got a nervous system, your child's got a nervous system, what makes sense for both of you? Chances are, as parents, we might gravitate towards parenting strategies that are not super popular right now, that are not trendy, but that makes sense for our family. And so what I see is that organically, parents can organically gravitate towards, having a low demand lifestyle. No need for 1,000 after school programs and activities that are organized sports and whatnot during the weekends that are putting demands on everybody's nervous system because hurry, hurry, we have to be on time. Hurry, hurry, put your boots. Hurry, hurry, eat. Hurry, hurry, we have to go through XYZ. Lowering the demands and connecting. That's what we see, but it goes against what is trendy right now. So letting go of the trendy parenting happens when we kind of, mute the noise and focus on what makes sense for our nervous system needs and our children's, because chances are your nervous system needs are also your kids. If it's overwhelming for you, let's say, to always be running after school, going to different sporting clubs and other activities and on the weekends and doing XYZ and whatever, then chances are it's also activating and putting a lot of demand on your kids' nervous systems. And so that's one of the many examples I can give, but truly muting the noise and tapping into the gut instinct, even if it's scary, you won't die. It's okay if you have some anxiety around that. It's okay. It won't be the end of you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's just it's a thing. It's not lifeblood.
Exactly.
And with social media aside, you have kids who are maybe a little older that have friend groups, and their parents maybe aren't as regulated as you are, and they see those other kids doing all of those after school activities, and they want to do baseball, they want to do soccer, they want to do football, they want to do hockey, they want to do all of these things, and the parent is thinking, well, I want you to have those things, so
You're going to
where's
miss out.
where's the
Mhm.
line? Yeah. I want
Mhm.
you to have those things. I want you to be who I wasn't. I want you to have the opportunities that I didn't. And if you want to do this, how do we balance what the kid wants? They want to participate in all of these things, but we're trying to live a low demand lifestyle. Where's the balance there?
Yeah, good question. And it goes back to the basics of the attachment in the relationship between a child and a parent. The parent will be this anchor for emotional safety, right? But going to emotional safety does not mean always doing what we want. It's doing what's best. And so, in that, I'm not saying I think that kids should never do any activity. I think that one per week is probably fine depending on your child's nervous system capabilities, ability to take in the demands. Some kids will be a little bit more sensitive to that than others. And kids, as adults, will want to keep up with the Joneses.
Hmm.
It's this thing that is generalized now more than ever. I feel like, even if kids don't have necessarily access to social media when they're young, there will be this comparison. And so what happens is we have to look at, okay, well, of course, we always want our kids to have access to things that we didn't have access to. We want to open the world to our kids if we're able to, if there's, not that many obstacles maybe for us to do that. What we want to do is to look at the family culture. What type of family culture do I ultimately want to live? What is aligned with me? If looking back at the patterns, I can look at the data and see, you know what? I don't know how hockey is for you in the States, but here in Canada, oh my goodness, it is a
Depends on where
thing.
you live. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's very demanding. I'm going to use hockey just because it's something I know. And I know that it's very demanding. A couple times a week, kids will have practices. And then on the weekends, starting at like 7 a.m., you have to be in arenas.
Mhm.
And you're there on the Saturday, you're there on the Sunday. And then the next week, whoop, right back into it. Hockey becomes your life.
Yeah.
And so it's very demanding. And so what we see is that kids can absolutely love it and thrive in it. But if as adults, we're completely dysregulated when it comes to waking up early during the weekends, and we're completely dysregulated when it comes to the mental load of having to plan for meals and plan for hotels and the financial stressors that come with that because you're traveling all the time, let's say. Well, it's worth taking a pause, zooming out, and being like, all right, our kid loves this sport. Doing this sport in this cadence and this frequency and intensity is not conducive to good parenting for me. Then I'm going to invite listeners to put the parenting needs first. And that can be tough to hear
Mm. Yep.
because we want to please our kids. We want to put our kids first.
Yeah.
Right now, the whole parenting game is put your kid first.
Yeah. We don't want to be the bad guy.
Exactly. But the thing is, you know, there's a reason why in airplanes they tell you if the oxygen mask goes down, the adults put the oxygen mask on themselves first before trying to help other people.
Hmm.
This is your oxygen mask. Looking at this very bluntly and being like, all right, you know what? My nervous system right now can't keep up with the demands. And that doesn't mean that your child will have to grieve, let's say hockey, or will have to not partake in anything. But this might just mean that you will have to ask for help.
And it doesn't make you a bad parent.
That's it. Exactly. Exactly. To wave the white flag and be like, yeah, you know what? I can't just take everything on my own.
Yeah.
To ask for help, get creative. If you don't want to pull your child out of the sport or the art class or whatnot. And if it does come to that point, it's not a bad thing. You will be modeling what it's truly like to regulate ourselves as adults, and there's always space for repair. This is another really important component of the attachment in the relationship. The challenges and the repair, super important. If there's no challenges and there's no falling out, then there's nothing to repair. And this relationship is actually quite surface level.
Mm. Yeah.
So if we so if we can go into the repair and be like, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry about what needs to happen for our family. We thought that, in my example, hockey would be a really good idea. And it sounds like, you know what? Me and mom, me and dad, whatever, we can't go through with it. And then leaving space for the child's emotions. Letting them get mad at you for taking this bold decision. Letting them let you know how mad at you they are for changing your mind for something that's so important to them. And you welcoming that and staying there and asking, tell me more. And saying, I totally get that and I'm so sorry. Now I know what I can and cannot do. I know more about my capacity. I'm still learning as a mom. I'm still learning as a dad. I'm going to keep learning. But with what I've learned just now, I know that for the future, I won't overstretch myself. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And to hold the moment, then what happens is there will be trust that is built from that moment, from that rupture with the repair. There's even more trust that happens. And if you need to have this sort of conversation with your child, I mean, it won't be easy. You can prepare yourself in advance as much as possible to feel some sort of safety going in. But the goal here is to show our vulnerability and how we're imperfect, because what a big permission slip it is to show up imperfectly for our kids. We're
Yeah.
telling them they're allowed.
And that's so huge because kids model what they see.
Absolutely.
Wow, what an incredible conversation. Thank you so much, Danik. And where can we find you?
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I can be found on Instagram. I'm at Danik Helps Moms. My podcast is Healing Mothers Club.
Awesome. Yep, go find her. I'll put the links in the show notes. Thank you so, so much for coming on. And I always end each episode with one question, and that is, what does the future hold for Danik?
The future. Well, I really want to do a little bit of some in person conferences in my neck of the woods. And then, depending if it all goes well, my wildest dream would be like a little tour, or not a little tour, a tour.
Go big. Go big.
A tour, giving in-person conferences. I feel like now, 5 years post pandemic and all, we're back into the groove of wanting to meet in person and have this human to human connection. And yeah, just something around Canada, the States, a tour like that. That's something I'd love to. So keep your eyes open. It might
Yeah.
come.
Well, if you ever come down to Arizona, let me know.
I would love to.
That would be amazing. All right. Well, so much awesome, useful information today. I hope that listeners enjoyed this episode. And thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Fine, I'll Talk About It. If today's episode got you thinking, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want more real talk, more perspective shifts, and more finally someone said it moments, leave a quick review. It helps other people find the show. And you can connect with me on Instagram at Inspired Action Wellness or my website, inspiredactionwellness.com, for more conversations like this. We will see you in the next episode.